All right, so what's going on, everybody? So let's talk a little bit about what's happening next, because many of us are living in different realities and other people are speaking past each other about what's really happening in the state of politics and the world today. And so I've talked a lot about the different audience groups and how different events are targeting these people so that there can ultimately be a greater awakening towards what's happening around us, whether it's conspiracy and bringing that to conspiracy reality or to understanding sort of the laws and regulations and all this stuff. If you're in audience number 3, you would know that we are in some state of devolution or a continuity of government following the attack and all the stuff that's happened since COVID. And so we are under laws and orders, military laws and orders. We're under certain regulations, certain executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, and all this stuff. And so that's why Trump even has on his hat that it says 45-47, because what's being played out is a movie, in a sense. People are waking up to an intentional sort of hyperbole or an exaggeration of sorts so that people can be shaken awake. And so this is happening. This is something that, again, if you're not in audience 3, you don't really have to worry about that. In some sense, it's not necessary if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, to sort of understand what's going on behind the scenes, because a lot of us, we have certain perceptions of reality, as I like to call it, with regards to how you take evidence and extrapolate that into your said perceived understanding of what's happening. And so if you don't do the research, if you don't have some bit of faith, and you don't have that commitment to trying to really go down certain rabbit holes without having opposition, without having people tell you off like you're some kind of conspiracy theorist and some crazy person, then you won't be able to get to that next level. And again, in some sense, it's arguable because of the idea that certain things are intentionally falsified because of the warfare that we are in. Again, we are in a fifth dimensional warfare against the enemies, for which you have to allow certain deception by the white hats such that it throws the black hats off and whoever is the enemy. And so it's very complicated. I don't want to get into that stuff. But the point here is that what's happening now has been a continuation of this stuff for the last 4+ and even 8 years since Trump was elected in 2016. And so again, all this stuff, this fighting that we have about whether 2020 was stolen or not, what you really believe as being factual, all this stuff is in some sense good, so that there's discourse and dialogue such that people can really try to hash things out and go deeper into investigation and these things. But really what it comes down to is that it's part of the Great Awakening, because you can't just tell them, right? You can't just tell them, you have to show them. And so because of what's happened the last 4 years, it's in some sense been a very pleasing development of how we've gotten to where we are, because of the fact that people have done things on their own. They were able to really wrestle with the facts and the information and really make their own conclusions over this course of time. And now what you're seeing play out in the last couple of weeks and all the way through the election is that people are taking a stand, and they are rooted in their beliefs, their values, and they've already made up their minds in some sense, and they're seeing the clear duality, the clear juxtaposition against the left, Harris, if you want to call it, and all this stuff, the Biden stuff, versus Trump and the good guys, the white hats, and all that stuff. And so again, I think what we're seeing right now is just a greater focus on trying to cater to the audience 1s and the audience 2 members, meaning that you're just going to have basic stuff that Trump's been talking about in his campaigns. You're going to have issues. You're going to just talk about, the common person, right? So work, economics, and all these different things, and ethical, moral values, and trying to win those people over to the perception of where we are living in audience 2, which is that you think there's an election, you think that there's something coming up on November 5th, and for which very well it will play out that way. But because of the executive orders, because of the PEDS, because of the military laws and orders and regulations and the stuff that's happened, we don't fully know. Again, I'm not saying that we can't know in the future, but the common person doesn't know, what's happened since COVID and the attacks and just this whole fight for humanity. And so that's why Trump has to play his hand to cater to that reality, for which it's a facade in some sense, that yes, Biden, quote unquote, won in 2020, and now we have a 2024 election, and just this continuity that's not going to be overwhelmingly shocking to people when they hear that maybe in the future that, listen, it was 45 through 47 dash 47, it was Trump this whole time, and we had to shake you awake and allow this show, this theatrical show of exaggeration, the economic, the inflation, all that stuff to happen such that you would wake up to the reality that, yes, there is a right way, there is a godly way, there is something for which you have been deceived in what is manifesting as the Democratic Party in some sense, or the woke movement in current day versus what really you should be looking at. It's not like this two-choice thing for which God is okay with one or the other, but really there is a righteousness behind it. There is a value, there's a moral-based biblical understanding of certain things and how you have to really get deeper in your walk, in your ability to discern, to ascertain this stuff such that you can make the conclusion yourself and you're not told the conclusions by other people, and there's this bandwagon effect, right? And so this is what's happening. I believe that we will see just a continuation of trying to win the common person over, those that are not awake and those that are on the fence, or even winning those that are liberal and on the left to the radical, woke movement that's happening and how crazy it's gotten. And that's going to lead through the election, and then slowly we'll see over time what Trump and many others have promised, which is the dismantling, right, the prosecution of the deep state, the bad guys, and what have you. And so I think that we're going to see what would be quote unquote normal to the eyes of public society, where a lot of us that have been talking about what's happening behind the scenes, we're going to see that play out in some sense to a degree which may take time, but it may not be fully divulged to the public because it has to be secret in the sense that it was a military operation. We may see it down the line, but who knows, right? And so Trump may not come out and say, hey, I was, we had a devolved government and I was basically the commander-in-chief this whole time and blah, blah, blah. Trump or Biden was an actor. We actually already executed him back on January 20th of 2021 and all that stuff. He may not say all that stuff, but what we're seeing is that you have to first wake people up. You have to get their feet wet and get them up to speed from that perspective. And so this is what I believe is happening. I believe that we're seeing some great things happening. We're going to see some economic issues. We're going to see political turmoil, a lot of cleaning up. You're seeing wars. You're seeing all this stuff happening. But in some sense, it has to play out because there's a actual deep-seated evil in society, and we have to get through this tough period. And so I believe God's in control. Obviously, if you're a Christian, you could say that. But to the extent that the white hats are in control through what God is doing, because yes, evil will be allowed to reign all the way through tribulation and all that until Christ comes back. But for now, I think we're in a season, like I've said before, for which we will move into some greater, better times. So love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.